let's talk coffee subscriptions because there are tons and tons of options out there, especially now in today's day and age. And we choose coffee subscriptions for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes we're looking to save some time instead of us having to go and do the research to figure out what cool roasters and coffees are out there. Just sit back and let an expert take care of it and they choose what to send to our doorstep. Sometimes we're just trying to expand our palate and try as many coffees as we can possibly think of, or try new roasters that we never would have come across ourselves. So really the question becomes, at the end of the day, what are you looking to get out of your coffee subscription? And that in turn helps you to figure out which is the best fit for you. My name is Darcy. I am a longtime coffee professional with over 10 years of experience in the specialty coffee industry. And today we are talking about Beanbox versus trade coffee subscriptions. Starting off with Beanbox. If you're trying to figure out if it's a good fit for you, or maybe you've already been with Beanbox for a while, I would honestly say Beanbox is a really great starting subscription. Particularly if you're trying to expand your palate and again, just try as many coffees as you possibly can and get a better sense of what do you enjoy, what do you not enjoy. Beanbox does a really good job of that. And the way that they operate is there are only a few fairly broad categories that you can choose from as far as your subscription goes. So for example, you could select a light roast subscription or a medium roast or single origin, where you just get a constant rotation of beans that are from a particular geographic location. And so that's helpful or beneficial because it's just one simple overarching category, but there are tons of different coffees that will fall under that category. So it's a really great way to get lots and lots of variety. But in my experience, over time, the more coffees that I've tasted, the more specific my preferences got, all the way down to I like this natural process, I like this processing method, I like this roast profile, I like these tasting notes. So with something like Beanbox, again, great starting point, but if you're reaching a point kind of like me, where you're just looking to get something a little bit more out of your coffee subscription, it's not that you don't still want variety. It's not that you don't want to keep trying new coffees, but you want a little bit more control over the coffees that actually land on your doorstep, because you already kind of instinctively know which coffees you will and won't enjoy. If that's the case, good news. I found an awesome alternative for you, which is trade coffee. Honestly, I wouldn't even say it's just an alternative. I would call it the alternative. So some of the coffee subscriptions that are out there, just to name a few, we've got Beanbox Coffee, Atlas Coffee Club, Craft Coffee, Trade Coffee. All of them operate fairly similarly with a couple of tweaks or differences here and there. Craft coffee in particular is super fast and easy to get started. And in fact, you can let them know if you have a favorite coffee or roaster that you already really enjoy, you can give them that information, and that helps them decide what some of the first coffees they should recommend to you are. And there are a couple of base options as far as what kind of size you need for ground coffee as well. Atlas Coffee leans a little bit more into kind of like the culture and experience aspect of it all. To my understanding, all of those coffees are single origin, where they're all coming from one particular geographic location. But with each bag that you receive, you get a little postcard with some information about the country that it's from, and then more information about the history of the coffee and its origins and its tasting notes, those sorts of things, which can be really fun. And then Beanbox, again, has pretty broad categories to choose from to get your subscription started, which can lead to a lot more variety. So what exactly is trade? What makes it so different? In practice, it operates very similarly to any other coffee subscription service. You can select and designate your delivery schedule, how often you want to receive new orders, and what kinds of coffees you want to receive. But think of it like a personalized coffee subscription, with personalized being the key word. Now, they do have collections. So similar to Beanbox, if you're still trying to expand your palate, but maybe you've kind of exhausted the rotation over at another subscription, this is a great place to do so and to switch things up a little bit. So again, they have collections like light roast, medium roast, dark roast, single origins, espresso blends, even like a curator collection. So if you just want to try what the coffee experts are super into at the moment, you can do so. But in particular, what their goal is to send coffees to your doorstep that they already know you will love from the get-go, because it's based on the information you have provided about your taste preferences and your favorite flavor profiles. In fact, one of the first things that you can do when you head over to the Trade website, they have a pretty short quiz, and it asks questions about what kind of coffees you tend to enjoy the most, how you prepare your coffee at home, what brewing devices you use, all sorts of things. And I'm actually going to take the quiz with you right now and walk through some of the questions that they ask. So starting off, question number 1, how do you feel about trying new coffees? And essentially they ask this question to figure out how much variety do you really want? Do you want a brand new out there coffee every single week or two? Or maybe just every once in a while, or not at all? So I stick to what I like. I try new things sometimes. I'm always chasing something new. Me personally, I tend to stick to what I like, but at the same time, I do want something a little bit out there every once in a while. So I try new things sometimes. Next question, how do you make your coffee? And you can select all that apply. So they've got coffee maker, espresso or mocha pot, French press, pour over, AeroPress, that's me right now, and cold brew. I tend to do the AeroPress and pour overs, so I'm gonna select both of those. Do you typically drink regular or decaf? I do regular. How do you take your coffee? So, and they've got a couple different options here. Always black, cream, milk and sugar, just sugar, or it depends. Fair option. I typically drink it black almost all the time. Do you prefer ground or whole beans? Now here's what's cool is when it's ground, it's not just a standard pre-ground for, the average coffee maker. It's specifically ground for whatever brewing devices you have specified. So for example, if I were to select ground, it already says perfectly ground for an AeroPress, and that's a pretty big game changer when it comes to making your own coffee at home. Now I am going to select whole bean because I do have a grinder. And then do you have a go-to roast? Light, medium, dark, or if you're somewhere in between, they even have a light medium or medium dark. I'm going to go with a healthy medium. How do you like your coffee to taste? Classic, balanced, complex. I'm a little bit on the complex side right now, but here's what else is cool. If you've been drinking coffee long enough to know that you like really specific tasting notes. Take me, for example, blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, literally anything ending in berry, and I'm there. You can actually fine tune the flavor notes that you enjoy the most. So I'm gonna hit fresh fruit, citrus, dried fruit. That puts me in the ballpark. Now, after you take your quiz, then it matches you with your very first coffee. So in this instance, they actually matched me with a coffee from Greater Goods, the coffee roaster, called Bright Minds. It has flavor notes of citrus, dried fruit, and brown sugar, and it's a medium roast from Colombia, which really tracks with the coffees I already know I kind of instinctively reach towards. Now, if they match you to your first coffee and you go ahead and start your subscription, they are so confident in matching you to a coffee they know you'll love that if they don't hit the mark for you, they will replace your first bag for free. That's how serious they are. So what's cool about that quiz is, number one, you get the chance to actually voice the preferences you know you already have. And rather than them just matching you to a good coffee, they're matching you to coffees that they already know you enjoy based on your answers to the quiz. So you're not being matched to a medium roast, you're being matched to a very specific flavor outcome that you have specified. So rather than just getting a selection of objectively good coffees that have been picked by experts, it's an expert that's picking a coffee that's good for you. And I feel like that's a pretty important distinction, especially when you've been drinking coffee for so long, to know exactly what you enjoy. But here's the other catch, is their algorithm actually gets better at matching you to coffees the longer that you use it. Because with each bag that you receive, you can rate it, and that informs their further decisions. So the more coffees you receive, as you rate each bag, the recommendations get even more pointed the longer that you use it. So eventually it kind of feels less like a subscription and less like you're just receiving a new bag of coffee in the mail every couple weeks, and more like someone genuinely knows your palate and is just making an awesome recommendation to you. The other cool thing is the freshness aspect, because the way that a lot of coffee subscriptions operate is, they have a pretty large selection of coffees to choose from, and a lot of it is already roasted, and it's kind of just hanging out in a warehouse waiting for an order to be fulfilled. But with Trade, because each coffee is selected specifically for you each time, every order is also roasted to order and then shipped to you directly from the roaster, which means when you actually make it to your doorstep, it is as fresh as it can possibly get. It's at its absolute peak window, which means you really get to enjoy the most out of the flavor. The roasters in Trade's program, by the way, they vet every single one of them, not just for their coffees, but also for the way that they operate. So they have relationships with over 55 roasters from across the country. They're all independent, hidden gem, if you will, and all of them are very deeply invested, both in their craft and also in their operations. They're giving back to their community. They're developing relationships across the supply chain, so with farmers and suppliers. So each coffee that you receive, not only will it taste good, but also it makes you feel good. You know that you can stand behind the coffee that you're drinking. Last but not least, let's say you're worried about a personalized coffee subscription becoming maybe a little predictable over time. Two pieces of that. Number one, there are so many coffees in Trade's program that it's very unlikely that you'll exhaust your options anytime soon, even if your preferences are super specific. But they also have a program called Trade Secrets, very aptly named. But every 2 weeks, they drop a super cool, super unique, small batch coffee that has some sort of story to tell. Whether it's got some sort of innovative processing method or roasting method, it's something that falls out of the usual rotation. And it's only dropped every 2 weeks for a limited amount of time. And that kind of keeps to help the element of surprise alive. That way you still feel like you're getting something new, you're still getting the variety that you were looking for. So all in all, if you've been with Beanbox for a while, or you've still been looking through some options, and you just want a little bit more control over the coffees that actually make it onto your doorstep every week or every month, Trade is a really great alternative to go, because it's personalized to your taste, your preferences, but you still get the variety and you still get to continue expanding your palate with each coffee that you try. So hopefully this was helpful to you and helps you decide what are you really looking for out of your coffee subscription, and based on that, which one might be the best option for you. But that's it for today. See you next time.